This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, March 4th, 2021. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, congressional Democrats passing a massive election reform bill. They say it's necessary for fair elections, but Republicans say it's a power grab. This all comes as Republicans plan to retake Congress next year. For the first time, the International Criminal Court has launched an investigation into alleged crimes in the Palestinian territories. We're going to tell you what the charges are and bring you reaction from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas. Getting your vaccine shots, the director of National Institutes of Health tells CBN News why they're important to help get America back to normal. And big business moving to the left. We're going to hear from one expert who explains why it's happening and what it means. All those stories and more are ahead in today's edition of CBN NewsWatch. We want to begin this half hour with Democrats in the House of Representatives passing their top priority, a massive voting bill that would be the biggest overhaul of election law in at least a generation. It was approved last night on basically a party line vote. The measure, called H.R. 1, touches on every basic part of the electoral process. It aims to create nationalized voting systems requiring uniform rules for all states. For example, requiring early voting and same-day registration, while also outlawing voter ID requirements and allowing ballot harvesting. Republicans charge the bill makes it easier to manipulate elections and more difficult to detect fraud.
This bill makes elections less trustworthy, not more. And trust is everything. When people can see the faults in the process, whether it's ballots at the wrong house or careless verification processes, they believe people are cheating. You can't just dismiss that. We have to fix it.
Democrats dismissed the idea of getting rid of the ID requirement would open the door for fraud. The bill faces a very tough road ahead in the Senate, where it needs 60 votes simply to advance. Meanwhile, Republicans looking to take back the House in 2022, they only need 5 seats. But in their pursuit of that goal, will the GOP embrace or reject former President Donald Trump? Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson reports on the GOP strategy to win back the House and the Senate.
The 2022 midterms are just around the corner, and Republicans hope to add to their gains in the last election. Trump vows to help that effort, although it's not just Democrats he wants to beat.
A person that loves seeing our troops fighting, Liz Cheney. How about that?
Speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference, Trump not only went after the third-ranking House Republican, but he also named each GOP lawmaker who voted for his impeachment.
So hopefully they'll get rid of her with the next election. Get rid of them all.
Cheney prefers the former president stick to running his business or golfing.
I don't believe that he should be playing a role in the future of the party or the country.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, however, credits Trump's campaign support for the GOP's 2020 success.
This is the first time since 1994 no incumbent Republican lost. We beat 15 Democrats. And you know who the 15 Democrats lost to? Conservative women and conservative minorities, each and every one of them.
Now leaders feel they can regain House control in 2022 and see candidate recruitment as a key strategy.
Do you want to retire Nancy Pelosi? Hell yeah. Do you want to end the socialism in this country? Win the House, 5 seats, the closest. This is the smallest majority the Democrats have had in 100 years.
Senator Mike Braun tells CBN News to win in 2022, Republicans need to appeal to more young people and minorities.
We've got the best message. We have to articulate it well and bring more people into the conservative movement out of the gate.
And stick with Trump.
I hope President Trump stays in the loop. I hope he also looks at how we improve on some of the stuff to articulate the message better so that it's not so close in these national elections, how we turn the tide of what we've seen in Arizona and Georgia. And I think that's clear by what you saw at CPAC, that he's got to be part of it. And it needs to be one Republican Party.
And Trump's impact is already being felt as he's endorsing primary candidates to take on the incumbents who voted in favor of his impeachment. Reporting from Virginia, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
For the first time, the International Criminal Court has launched a probe against Israel and Hamas for alleged war crimes. The move drew sharp criticism from Israel and praise from Hamas.
It's undiluted anti-Semitism and the height of hypocrisy. Without any jurisdiction, it decided that our brave soldiers, who take every precaution to avoid civilian casualties against the worst terrorist in the world, who deliberately target civilians, it's our soldiers who are war criminals.
Hamas welcomes the decision to open an investigation into the Israeli war crimes against our Palestinian people.
The ICC prosecutor points to the 2014 Gaza war. She believes Hamas attacked Israeli civilians, used its own people as human shields, and tortured political rivals. And she thinks Israel responded with disproportionate force against Palestinian civilians in 2014 and during border riots in 2018. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. So, Chris, you've covered both the 2014 war with Hamas and the border demonstrations in 2018. What can you tell us about those conflicts in light of the decision by the ICC?
Well, Ephraim, on those two rules of engagement there in 2014 and 2018, they were very strict by the IDF. For example, in 2014, that was Operation Protective Edge that was designed to stop rocket fire into Israel. And what Israel did is that they texted Gazans to leave conflict areas. They dropped leaflets to warn people to get out of those areas. And they used precision munitions designed to hit just the building they wanted to target. In 2018, there were massive demonstrations on the border. They warned people to get away. They used bullhorns. They fired tear gas, warning shots. Then they shoot people to wound if they were trying to cross over into Israel. And then they took lethal action. Also, it's important to note, Ephraim, that at the decision by the ICC, the jurisdiction was one day after Hamas kidnapped 3 Israeli boys. Those boys were eventually killed. That was a big reason for the war. Now, that's not part of this indictment by the ICC.
So what makes this decision so unique?
Well, Ephraim, it's the only situation where the ICC is investigating a non-member state. Israel is not part of the ICC jurisdiction, and at the urging of a member that is not a state, the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is not a state, doesn't qualify as a state, and many people just see this as a way to delegitimize Israel. So there's 123 nations that are members. Israel is not one of them.
How does this ruling affect Jewish communities in the West Bank, the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria?
Well, the ICC regards the transfer of civilians into occupied territories as a war crime, yet this is a new offense. Israel's not displacing anyone, and the statute was written just for Israel. And here's why. At the suggestion of some of the Arab states, they expanded, like Morocco, they expanded the definition of the Geneva Convention. And now they say people that are directly or indirectly transporting civilians into, quote, occupied territories are liable under this offense by the ICC. It's not meant to deter a war crime, but an ongoing process, which is exactly what's happening in biblical Judea and Samaria. It's also interesting to note that the ICC hasn't taken any action against Russia that transported thousands of Russians into Crimea several years ago. So what this does as well is it really puts an individual responsibility for, say, mayors in Judea and Samaria that might be liable for what the ICC is prosecuting Israel for.
And what does this mean for Israeli leaders like former Chief of Staff Benny Gantz?
Well, right now the process takes a long time, and it depends on what's happening, you know, in the world at that time. It's good to note, or interesting to note, that it's only been 8 convicted in 20 years since the ICC started in 2001. Now, the ICC can issue arrest warrants, but it's really up to the member nations, those 123 members of the ICC, to enforce them. So really the impact is really more symbolic and diplomatic. And again, it makes many people feel this decision by the ICC was just meant to demonize Israel in the eyes of the world and put them on the defensive. Many people say this is not warfare, but lawfare against the Jewish state.
All right, CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell from Jerusalem, thank you so much. Back here at home, the Biden administration says the growing number of immigrants on the southern border with unaccompanied minors is a challenge, but it will not call it a crisis. CBN contributor Chuck Holton is in Colombia with migrants who are heading to the United States.
This group of migrants behind me comes from mostly Haiti and Cuba, but there are also people here from Ecuador and Ghana and Congo and even Turkey. And they've come here for one reason, and that's they're on their way to the United States. They fly initially into Ecuador, and then once they get to Ecuador, they take buses up through Colombia to this point on the northwest border of Colombia. From here, they get on those boats that are back behind me, and they take the ferry across to the trailhead, and there begins some of the most difficult days of their life. They're going to have to walk up to 6 days through the jungle of the Darien Gap to get to Panama. Most of these people, by talking to them, I can tell they have no idea how difficult that's going to be.
The Secretary of Homeland Security blasted the Trump administration's immigration policies and called the border situation a stressful challenge. But Republicans say President Biden's policies are encouraging migrants to head to the United States. We want to remind you of a new free service from CBN News, a CBN News daily email called Quick Start. It gives you the stories you need each morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get important international, national, and faith-based news delivered right to your email inbox. You can subscribe at quickstart.news. Coming up, the director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Francis Collins, tells CBN News when he expects life to get back to normal and why Christians should be getting their COVID vaccine shots. We're going to hear from him when we get back.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Superbook fans, here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
The director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Francis Collins, predicts American life will return to normal when the vast majority of us get vaccinated. And he told CBN's medical reporter Lori Johnson why he believes Christians in particular should get their shots. Here's Lori's interview with Dr. Collins.
Now that 3 vaccines are available in the U.S., President Biden and health experts believe there will be enough to vaccinate the adult population by Memorial Day. The key will be getting shots in arms.
For me, as a scientist who's also a Christian, this is an answer to a lot of prayers, and it feels as if this is the way in which God is helping us get through this.
NIH Director Dr. Francis Collins tells CBN News people should take whichever vaccine is first offered to them.
The vaccines, which I've had a big part in helping get developed, have been tested in the most rigorous imaginable trials. They've been shown safe and effective.
That includes a vaccine from Johnson & Johnson, which is under fire for using a cell line from a decades-old abortion in its creation.
And certainly the Catholic Church, as represented by the Vatican, has said it is moral for individuals to take advantage of such vaccines if in so doing they may be helping save lives. And we do believe all of these vaccines can save lives.
He explained the cells from the original abortion have been continuously replicated in a lab to the point where they're now thousands of generations removed.
Some people are, I think, troubled by the idea that the vaccine that's going into their arm had that history. It does not have any of those cells in it, but it has that history of having been used in that way. And I understand, therefore, why some will look at the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and think maybe that's not the one I would prefer to get.
For now, however, people cannot choose which vaccine they get.
I would be reluctant to suggest that anybody should just wait until they get the one they like, because that might be waiting a while. In the meantime, people can still get sick.
Collins sees people taking the shot as a way to love thy neighbor, especially those with medical conditions, preventing them from getting or fully benefiting from the vaccine.
This is not just about sort of self-serving, I want to be sure I don't get sick. It really does come down to, are we going to take part in something that will help others around us?
He calls the coronavirus vaccines a gift from God.
We humans, as God's children, have been given the tools of science to kind of come up with our own way to work through God's grace to provide an opportunity to prevent suffering. And I think that's what vaccines are and have been all along.
So while we now know America will have an ample supply sooner than expected, it's unclear how many will choose to get the vaccine. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
And we'll have that entire interview with Dr. Collins posted on our website today. You can find it at cbnnews.com. Still ahead, they've become some of the leaders of left wing in America's ideological wars, but this time they're not elected officials or political activists. They're members of the business community. We're going to hear one expert's explanation as to why when we come back.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? you can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
The culture wars and cancel culture are heating up. Now they're led by big tech and monster corporations influencing not only what you spend and what you buy, but also what you think. And if you disagree with their left-leaning values, you may face ridicule and financial retribution. On this week's episode of The Global Lane, author Stephen Sukup says Marxist socialists started infiltrating education, government institutions, and media following the First World War. And now they're finally changing American society through big business.
It was only a matter of time before they took business as well. And that's where we are today with the cultural leftists finally getting their hands on the final institution of cultural transmission in the West.
And this is hard to believe because actually these wealthy CEOs of these companies have gained from capitalism. They're wealthy because of capitalism. So you mentioned how corporations used a divestment strategy to pressure the South African government into ending apartheid. Now, I reported on that many years ago from Johannesburg and Washington, and you don't mention it in your book, but tell us about the role corporations are playing in the BDS movement against Israel. Who's driving that?
Well, who's the same people who are driving that, who are driving most of the anti-Zionism and most of the aggression against Israel. And that's activists, political activists. The difference is that some corporations are susceptible to the pressure placed upon them by these political activists. And to be honest, it doesn't matter what their political views are. They need to satiate and to quiet the protesters. So we get a situation where an outside influence is affecting the way a corporation behaves, and in this case, affecting their behavior toward Israel.
You mentioned Apple's alliance with Disney, how their CEOs use their corporate economic clout to hurt religious liberties legislation in Georgia and to punish the state of North Carolina over its law on the use of gender-specific bathrooms. So tell us about that, and is this a trend? More to come?
Certainly, I think there's more to come. What we had, I believe it's 4 years ago, in the states of Georgia and North Carolina were policies that were passed by the legislatures that were elected by the people and that were signed or threatened to be signed by the duly elected executives of the state that businesses decided they didn't like. And they stomped their feet and threw a fit and said, if you go ahead and enact the democratic will of the people, we're going to punish you. It came to a head 2 years after that in Georgia, when the people of Georgia elected a center-right legislature and a center-right governor who passed and then signed a fetal heartbeat law. And the entertainment industry in particular, led in this case by Disney, decided that they didn't particularly care for the people of Georgia exercising their political will that way. So they threatened the Georgians. So when Bob Iger of Disney and some of the other entertainment moguls said, you know what, I don't see how we're going to be able to do business in your state, what they were really saying was, I don't care about these 100,000 people who are employed by my industry in your state. What I care about is getting my political way.
Well, and I guess we're going to see this continue. It's really an anti-Christian, anti-Judeo-Christian morals and values at play here. So finally, quickly, how can people push back against this corporate political domination of our society? These CEOs have a lot of money, a lot of clout.
Absolutely, they have a lot of money, they have a lot of clout, and they have the backing of the financial services industry, which has gotten heavily involved in this over the past couple of years. The way to push back, I think, is to inform yourself. Understand what's happening, why it's happening, and who's making it happen. And then once you understand that, you can probably make small changes in your life to direct the money that you've earned in your life, that you're saving for your retirement, that you're saving for your kids' college education, that you can make small changes to utilize that more effectively to cut off these people who would use your wealth to advance their political ends.
Okay, use their tactic, hit them in the pocketbook. Your book is The Dictatorship of Woke Capital, How Political Correctness Captured Big Business. Stephen Sukup, thank you for sharing your insights with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And you can hear about other trends in the news, including an analysis of the future of the conservative movement, by tuning into the Global Lane this evening at 8:30 Eastern. You can find that on the CBN News Channel. Coming up next, we're going to have an encouraging word for your day ahead. Stay with us.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
His story has inspired the world for thousands of years, while some scholars doubted his very existence.
We are shedding some light on the story of David and Goliath.
This is ancient biblical Jerusalem.
CBN Films presents Written in Stone, House of David.
Extraordinary discoveries made headlines around the world.
Written in Stone, House of David. Get your DVD copy for a gift of any dollar amount.
Time now for your Thursday Thankful. I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for reaching me in moments where I feel like I am no one, going nowhere with no one. With you, I am not too small, not too far away, or too far gone. To that prayer, I say amen, and I am truly, truly grateful. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time or online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us at the address right there at the bottom of your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make this a thankful Thursday. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.